Welcome in, my name is Ro. I'm a project manager turned content creator, and in today's video, I would like to talk about something that I find very important specifically in the creator industry, which is financial transparency. Especially with my recent decision to go from being half corporate, half creator to being a full-time creator, I think it is valuable to share some insights into my income as a creator as well as my expenses, to hopefully give other people a little bit of inspiration or a little bit of insight in what it can be like to be a full-time creator. I would like to state that some of the information that you might be seeing in this video is very tied to the country that I live in, which is the Netherlands, and their Dutch tax system. So obviously for you, in the end, specifically taxes and laws and regulations might be different, so please make sure to check that and make sure that you understand them before making any decisions financially. Also, for more context surrounding my income and things that I think are important to know, I will share them with every income stream that I share as well as every expense stream that I share, but just remember that context can be very important in situations like this, because even though money is all about numbers, a lot of it is still dependent on your personal situation. But with all of those disclaimers out of the way, let's actually hop into the first part of this video, and that is my income for 2024. An important thing here is that I'm sharing my income as a content creator, not necessarily the income I gained from my corporate job. But for frame of reference, the total income I made as a content creator makes up for about 50% of my total income of 2024, meaning that my corporate job made just about as much as my content creator job. But there is, again, a lot of context to that, because my corporate job included pension savings, tax payments, stuff like that, which is something which isn't included in my content income. So even though the content income is the same, there is actually a lot more costs that still need to be deducted from that to get to an actual spendable income compared to the income that I got from my corporate job. I just want you to keep that in mind, that even though it seems to be 50-50 on paper, it actually isn't entirely 50-50. But let's dive into the income streams for 2024. So in total, my income in 2024 was 34,643 euros. The important thing here is that some platforms, if I'm going to show data later on the screen, actually show things in dollars. Everything that you're seeing in this video is based off of my own bookkeeping and my own administration, which is all in euros because I get paid in euros. And this is actually the first thing where context really matters, is because I'm actually losing quite some money because I am getting paid in euros. Obviously, if you're streaming on Twitch or if you're creating YouTube videos, the main currency of those platforms isn't euro. So that means that every single time that I get paid, I have to deal with not always necessarily positive conversion rates. This might look completely different if you're a streamer from the US and you're actually getting paid in dollars, because then you don't have this issue. So that roughly 35,000 euros was actually built up of 7 different income streams. The by far biggest and most important income stream of 2024 was selling Notion templates. I made a little under 11,000 euros with selling Notion templates. I actually started doing this all the way at the end, like the tail end of 2023. So a little bit of my Notion template sales actually happened in 2023, but the vast majority of my business picked up in 2024. A very small percentage of this is actually people that decided to tip when buying a free Notion template, but most of it comes from my 2024 full Notion setup that actually had a YouTube video on this channel that did pretty well, which I think is one of the things that I feel like is important context to give with this. A lot of people always tell you go sell a digital product. Unfortunately, just creating a digital product and putting it out there in the world isn't necessarily gonna pay your bills. You're gonna have to do quite some marketing, and in my case, I feel like that YouTube video doing pretty well and getting quite some eyes on it definitely contributed to that Notion template doing well on my shop as well. I would say that this income is partially passive because creating the template does take quite a time investment, but after that, it's just sitting there on my shop creating money while I am not doing anything to actively promote it anymore. I sometimes posted about it on Twitter or something, but it was all very passive, all very relaxed promotion, very relaxed marketing, and most of the incomes just happened from creating the template and creating a YouTube video about it. I actually throughout the year kept a little list of moments where I was making money where it felt so extra passive to me, like I sold a Notion template while I was on a beach in Aruba, and I sold a Notion template while I was on a tram to the hospital. Like, these are all moments where you are very effectively not working and still making money, which I definitely contribute being able to go full-time very, very much to the fact that I'm selling a digital product, because without doing that, I would not be able to support myself as a full-time creator yet. Then the second income stream, which is just slightly smaller than selling Notion templates, is actually my Twitch live streaming payouts. This is sitting at a little over 10,500 euros, and this income quite obviously is extremely active. And you can also see that throughout the year, this income very visibly went up with how much I was streaming. Throughout 2024, I slowly increased the hours that I was streaming because I was doing more and more co-working streams, which are very long streams where I'm basically live the entire day. day. And some days I even go live at 9:45 in the morning. I take a small break around dinner time, and then I'm live for the entire evening again. So it is very visible that the more time I was live, the more income I was gaining from it, simply because more people were watching my stream and there were more eyes on what I was doing, and more people decided to support that monetarily. On Twitch, there's different monetization tools, so people can subscribe, which is basically kind of different from subscribing on YouTube, because here it just means that you're following a channel. But if you subscribe on Twitch, you're basically paying a creator monthly because you enjoy their content. You can subscribe on different tiers. So the lowest tier is $4.99 in my currency, and the highest tier is $24.99 in my currency. That is one of the things. And the other thing is a digital currency that they call bits, which you basically purchase with real money, and then you can cheer bits. It's similar to other things that you can see on TikTok, like giving roses and stuff. It's basically just a gamification of monetization for a creator. And then lastly, there's ad revenue. And I feel like this is definitely one that has contributed a lot to my income on Twitch in 2024. Because like I said, I started to increase my stream hours, and I started running ads at 3 minutes an hour, which if you do that, you actually unlock a higher ad revenue split on Twitch, which 3 minutes of ads is quite a lot. And I would definitely not recommend it to everyone. We try to use that time to actually take a break on stream so that people are not missing any of the actual content. But it has drastically increased my income, because if you stream a lot of hours for a reasonable amount of viewers and you have 3 minutes of ads an hour that you get paid 55% for, that like quickly adds up throughout the year. And then like I already said, this income is extremely active, which also means that if I stop streaming, most of this income would go away. So a lot of these hours that I'm spending streaming, I actually need to continue doing, which makes it a very time-intensive commitment. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, in 2024, I streamed for 1,158 hours on Twitch, meaning that my average income per hour is about €9. And if you divide this by 52 weeks, I'm actually streaming about 22 hours a week. Obviously, like I said, I slowly increased my hours throughout the year. So if you only take the last 6 months, which is kind of like where I'm at now with my streaming, I would say that I'm streaming about 35 hours a week at least, which is also where I saw my income increase significantly. So this is a very active income stream, and I know that I've been really stretching this, but I think this is the part that a lot of people, when they're watching Twitch streamers, don't realize is, one, it is not a quick buck to make, because it took me more than 3 years to get where I am right now. And two, it is also not something that is just very easy laid back income. I would say that creating a digital product and selling it is much more profitable when it comes to your hourly wage than it is to do live streaming or create any other form of content, which is also why I always stretch for people that might be watching this video, but also when people ask me for any advice to get started with streaming, is do it for the right reasons. Do it because it makes you happy. Do it because you enjoy doing it, because it gives you energy and it makes you feel creatively fulfilled. But don't do it for the money, because that's not going to be your primary reason why you want to stay and put all the hours into being a Twitch streamer. Then moving on to my third biggest income stream, which is YouTube payouts. And I would like to preface this by saying that that goes for 2 different YouTube channels. So I have 2 YouTube channels that are monetized. It's the one that you're watching right now, and my other channel, which is a gameplay channel for Sims 4. And that channel is actually much, much bigger than this channel. So in terms of ad revenue that I got on videos, I would say that about 85 to 90% comes from that channel, and the other last maybe like 10% comes from this channel, because this channel is by far not making as much ad revenue as the other channel is doing. But I made in total €6,482 from YouTube ad revenue. Like I said, about 6,000 of that, I'm guessing this is very much a guesstimation, but about 6,000 of that is coming from the Sims YouTube channel, which is currently sitting at 28,000 subscribers. So the subscriber count definitely does not correlate to how much money you make, because it is much more correlated to your watch time and literally how many hours people have consumed your content. So you can have a much smaller channel with much higher ad revenue, or a much bigger channel with much lower ad revenue. It is also very dependent on your niche. So if you are a financial YouTube creator, that means that you're going to get much higher paid ads on your YouTube channel, because obviously financial companies are willing to pay more for that slot. If you're a gaming creator, unfortunately, your ad cost, which is what they call RPM, revenue per mil, so basically how much do you earn per 1,000 views, that's going to be relatively low compared to maybe other channels. I've already noticed this on my productivity channel, that even though I get much less views, the RPM is actually higher than my Sims channel. And it's not that I'm spending less time on those videos or more time on those videos, it is simply because it's a different niche. So this is something that you can keep in mind if you start creating content on YouTube and your goal is to actually make it your job, is niche does matter, and the gaming niche is definitely not the most profitable on YouTube. Then I think that something that is important to mention is that even though my ELSWHERE YouTube channel is much smaller and didn't make as much ad revenue, it has been a huge gateway to selling the Notion templates and getting specific sponsorships for that channel. Again, a gaming channel isn't the most attractive to sponsor on YouTube, so most of my sponsorships that weren't like big Twitch sponsorships actually came through on the ELSWHERE channel, even though it's a relatively small channel compared to my Sims channel. But sponsoring on gaming channels just doesn't happen unless you're like a really big creator, and even then it turns out to be relatively difficult to get companies interested in sponsoring your videos. I think throughout my entire content creation career, I've done 3 sponsored videos on my Sims YouTube channel, which I've been creating at since day 1, so that channel is 3.5 years old. So that comes down to about 1 sponsorship a year. On my ELSWHERE channel, I have done almost 10 sponsorships, and that channel is about 1.5 years old. So that is definitely a huge difference, which obviously isn't reflected in the ad revenue, but does definitely play a role in deciding whether a channel is interesting to keep alive for monetization purposes. Then I would say that YouTube income is like partially passive, because as soon as your video is created and it's up there, people can continue to watch it and it will start generating income over time. The downside of this is also very much not instant income. So creating something will take you quite some time, and then you kind of just have to wait and see if it picks up and generates any income for you. There is actually a pretty big chance that a video never picks up and that you spent a lot of time working on something that doesn't get you anything in return. If your video pops off, it's going to be really nice because it's going to continue to generate income over time. It's going to continue to help your channels grow, which then in return will hopefully create more income on other videos as well. I think a lot of people burn out on that phase of having to create very consistently before you're gonna see any return on that. Then my next income stream is sponsorships. And in 2024, I made 6,438 euros from sponsorships. So that's actually very close to the YouTube payouts. And I would say that most of these sponsorships actually took place in the last, I would say 6 or 7 months of 2024. I actually signed with a management in spring of 2024. And ever since, sponsorships have come in quite consistently, and I would say since August 2024, I have had at least 1 sponsorship a month, either on my YouTube channel or on my Twitch streams. This isn't all due to management, this is also from me just growing my channels and getting to a point where sponsors are interested in working with me, but it definitely helps to have a management that can help me pitch prices, that can help me negotiate deals, that can speed up the process, but also can take off a lot of administrative work for me that otherwise I would have to do myself, which would have taken a lot of time, which probably would have resulted in me taking on less sponsorships. For sponsorships towards 2025, something that I really want to focus on is finding more brands that I can work with long term. There is a couple of reasons for that. The first one being that I think if I promote a different brand on my streams or on my YouTube every single week or every single month, it is going to start feeling inauthentic to myself, but especially to my viewers, because that's what it will be. If I continuously promote new brands and say that the next one is better than the previous one, there's going to come a point where it doesn't feel real or authentic anymore, and I do not want to get to that point because that doesn't resonate with me or my values. Then the second thing is I would like to focus on sponsorships that pay me, like not just a one-time thing, but again, have that longer term partnership, but also agree on like a contractual basis for a year. Because now that I'm a full-time creator, having predictable income is going to help me a ton in feeling relaxed in my job. So rather than every single month having to think about, oh my God, am I going to have a sponsor for next month? Am I going to collaborate with someone? Is the rate good enough for me to pay my bills? Like stuff like that, I do not want to stress about it. I just want to make sure that I know which sponsors I'll be working with throughout the year and how much I'm going to get paid from them. When it comes to sponsorships, obviously the income is extremely active. If I don't do a lot of promotion for myself, if I don't put myself out there all the time, sponsors will never find me. If I don't have a management, or if I would do it myself and do like cold calling, trying to get brands to work with me and reading contracts and getting briefed and creating concepts and getting those reviewed, like the process of working with sponsors takes a lot of work. It is very rewarding because obviously the financial side is very interesting and I really enjoy working with sponsors, but also it is extremely active income. Just like Twitch streaming, there's like, if you don't do the work in the now and spend a lot of time on it, there's not going to be any payoff from it. Then moving on to the next income stream, which is merch sales. And that actually drops down quite a lot because from about 6K, we're going down all the way to 305 euros for an entire year. To be honest, my merch sales are relatively minimal, and that's also because my merch sales are very much tailored towards my core community. It is merch that is set up to be for people that really enjoy consuming my content, that are very engaged on specifically my Twitch streams, and that would like to get a piece of merch to wear as part of enjoying my content. I do think that immediately debunks a really big myth or an advice that I see given a lot when it comes down to content creation, where a lot of creators say, create yourself some merch and start selling it, and then that will be a nice income stream. I genuinely think you have to get people pretty engaged in your community before they want to buy merch. Again, unless you're selling merch that is very generic and applies to a really large group of people. But then I wouldn't necessarily say it's merch. You're simply just creating a physical product at that point. So if you're really talking about merch, I don't think for a lot of creators that are on the smaller side, which I am, even though my view count specifically on Twitch and like my subscriber count on YouTube at this point is not, it doesn't feel small anymore. If you look at the grander scheme of things, I'm still a small creator. Maybe at this point I'm like a medium creator, but like still a small to medium creator. I'm not a big creator. I don't have over 1K viewers on Twitch. I don't have over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like, I'm not in that league yet, which simply means that there's less people that would be interested in buying my merch. Then the next, and technically I would say a final official category of income, is donations, which throughout the entire year was 136. This is simply people in the community being extremely generous. People that specifically around times of Christmas decided to give me a tip because they really enjoy my content and they wanted me to have a little tip. Just like a tip for people that work in restaurants and stuff. This is exactly that, but in the content creation world, it's usually referred to as donations. This is just a big thank you to everyone who decided to donate that way. Thank you so much for those tips. I really appreciate it. And I would say that this income is definitely active because without being on the internet, people wouldn't tip me. If I didn't create hours upon hours of content, people wouldn't tip me. So this is a relatively weirdly, like income wise, I would say is active, but also it feels very passive because I'm not asking for it. I'm not like creating something for people to buy. It's literally just the generosity of people. And then, like I said, the previous one was technically my last official income stream. That is because the last one, the last one is just interest. It's simply from having money on my bank account and then my bank paid me for having money on my bank account. That's just 37 euros. It's not a lot, but still it's nice. It's a little bonus. So that covered all of my income streams. So let's actually take a quick look at my expenses. So my total expenses for 2024 were 18,000. This is actually 11 different types of expenses, so I would like to walk you through them. They're not going to be as in-depth or as extensive as my income part, because I feel like for a lot of these things, there's a lot less context that I need to give. But the first one, which is by far the biggest, was I paid myself about 3,500 euros. This is just little payments every single month that I paid out to myself because I wanted to make sure that when I started working less at my corporate job, I actually transitioned to a 24-hour contract, which basically meant that I had income loss. And this was just to make up for a small part of that. I wasn't fully covering the gap that I created. Then the next biggest cost is travel and conventions, which was 2,700. Which obviously is a lot of money if you think about it, but the biggest main contributing factor is me going to TwitchCon US. I think this was the same in my previous video when you watch my 2023 version of this video. I, again, also spent quite a lot of my money on traveling to TwitchCon US. That is simply because that conference is so much fun. It is great. I get to see my friends that live all across the world, and it is one of those things that actually often leads to new business opportunities or often leads to very cool networking things. So I very much value value going to both the TwitchCon in Rotterdam or TwitchCon EU and the TwitchCon in the US. But obviously that isn't cheap. You have to pay for your flights, your accommodation, and your entrance into the conference. So this will probably be one of my highest expenses for the foreseeable years as well. And at this point, I've just started to budget for it, and I just make sure that I put aside roughly this amount of money every single year to make sure that I can be able to afford those trips. Then the next one is I gave this room a huge makeover, which cost me about 2.4K, which obviously again is a lot of money, but this is not something I'll be doing every single year. I had a custom cupboard created in the back, and then obviously I had to pay for the materials, I had to pay for the labor, then I redid like the lighting and everything, and just giving this entire studio an overhaul, painting it, etc. cost me about 2.4K. Definitely not a cheap investment, but I'm extremely happy with the result, and it's one of those things where when I realized that I would be living in this home for quite a while and that I would most likely spend even more time in this office in the foreseeable future, I decided that giving that makeover was going to be for the benefit of my content and for the benefit of me and my enjoyment in this room, basically. And then the next big expense actually kind of ties into that, and that is simply equipment. This was also roughly 2.4K, which all comes down to either upgrades for my setup, so buying a new lens for my camera or buying a new keyboard or stuff like that. But also on top of that, I bought like a vlogging camera or new portable mics or new power banks, or like basically anything that I bought to create is in the bigger container of equipment, which roughly came down to 2.4K in the past year. Then the next expense is having an editor. I paid about 2.1K to 2 different editors throughout the year. I have one editor that very consistently edits every single week for me, and then I have one editor that I kind of like hire on request. So when I have a specific video that I need help for, she helps me out. I absolutely adore both of my editors. I'm very, very, very happy to be able to work with very talented people. Just in general, it takes up such a huge workload for me that I am super happy that I'm in a position to pay people for their labor. And I think that throughout the coming years as a full-time creator, I would like to continue to increase my posting schedule by working with editors more, so that I just get to do the recording and the scripting and like the whole creative part, and sometimes edit something myself because I do enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it enough to do it every single day. So being able to outsource that and pay people for what they're really good at is something that I absolutely love to do because it benefits them and it benefits me, basically. Then my next expense is about 1.8K, and this is for subscriptions. This is for things like paying for my Notion Pro, paying for my Epidemic Sound, paying for my internet, paying for my phone bill, like basically anything that I pay on a monthly or quarterly basis that I need as a content creator. I would like to keep this at 1.8K for the coming year because it actually went up quite a lot between 2023 to 2024. That's simply because I've been trying to professionalize my content, and for a lot of those things I needed bought subscriptions for automations, or I needed Epidemic Sounds to be able to more easily get the right sounds in my videos and stuff like that. So it's definitely been something that went up, and I would like to keep it where it is right now and not increase it too much. I will probably have to increase it a little bit now that I'm a full-time creator and I have to actually ensure certain things for myself, but it is one of those things where I would like to keep this as low as possible, because if I ever have a bad month in terms of income as a full-time creator, this is going to be costs that are so inevitable because I'm literally subscribed. I signed a contract to pay, that the lower this is, the less stress I have as a business. Then next up, I have about 1.5K for charity. This includes donations that I've actually made to charity, but this also includes things that I've purchased for bigger charity events. So on my Twitch stream, I do a big annual fundraiser for Movember, and last year I bought about 700 euros worth of Sims expansion packs to give away throughout the month as a thank you for people that donated. So that's actually included in this cost as well. But being able to donate a portion of my income or invest a portion of my income into raising money for charity is something that I absolutely love, and I would love to continue doing as I go forward as a full-time creator. And then lastly, I have about 1.6K for miscellaneous and other, and this is basically the big bucket of all the costs that I didn't really classify specifically, because then they would all turn out to be really small things. But this can be things like purchasing a book of questions for my stream, purchasing sour candy for my stream, purchasing some smaller items for giveaways. This is literally just anything and everything that I kind of just mush together, if I go for a business lunch, stuff like that, that's about 1.6K a year. This is also the cost that if I ever get to a point where I'm low on income, I will just completely cut this out. These are all optional things. These are all things that I don't have to do. So now that we've covered my income and my cost, let's actually draw a little bit of a conclusion from that, where I feel like I hopefully can share a bit of insight on what it took to go from being a part-time creator to a full-time creator. For anyone who's done some quick maths, I've actually made about 16,000 of profit in the previous year. However, in the Netherlands, the tax rules aren't always in your favor if you're a single entrepreneur. So about 6,000 of that still needs to be paid to the tax agency. Moving from part-time creator to full-time creator actually will increase this taxing because I now have to start paying VAT as a business. So I will have to pay about 46 to 50% of taxes over my income as a content creator. As a full-time creator, it might sound like I'm earning a lot by saying I earned about 35,000, and I hope that increases in 2025. But just keep in mind that about 50% of that is just going to goodbye tax agency, and I don't see any of that money because I just have to give it away, basically. This means that I will roughly have about 10K that I actually have in profit from last year. I put all of that money aside in my business to save up for going full-time. This is things like putting money aside to be able to travel to TwitchCon this year. This is putting money aside to be able to pay an editor for a whole year. This is putting money aside to be able to pay myself for 2 months if I go full-time, making sure that I never have to wait for my invoices to get paid because I always have saved up 2 or 3 months in advance. I think this is something that I can recommend everyone doing if you have the ambition to go full-time at one point, is do not spend all your money. If you're earning money as a creator and you do not have to spend it because you don't have to like upgrades to your stream or you don't have to travel to events or anything, everything that you can save it up, because that's going to create that buffer that will hopefully allow you transition into full-time safely. Then something else that I think is good to note is that by spending more hours on content, because I had more time available towards the second half of the year, has effectively increased my income as well. So my income actually went up throughout the year as I, one, started saying I would like to become a full-time creator and I started dedicating my actions to that goal. But secondly, also, I would feel like spending more time and being more available did really translate into more income as well. So it is one of those things where at some point you're going to have to take the plunge and make the time available, whether that be by being less available socially or quitting your job, if that is obviously a sound decision to make, where if you continue to build momentum and then capitalize on that momentum, it does actually work, which is something that I didn't necessarily believe going into this, even though a lot of people told me that that was the case. And then a last point that I think is important to keep in mind is that a lot of big investments for me have already happened over the past 3 years. I've already invested in a good PC. I've already invested in a good camera. I already have basically anything that I need to stream. So any upgrades that I want to make will be quality of life upgrades. If I look at my expenses for equipment, it has gone down throughout the years because at one point you just have a lot and you just don't have to continuously buy everything. This was my full financial overview for 2020. I had to wait until my 2024 finances were fully concluded because one of the biggest downsides of being a creator is that sometimes your invoices don't get paid until 2 to 3 months later. So I had to wait before my entire book year was closed, but now that it's closed, I finally got to share the numbers with you. I'll do my best to actually create a video later in this year, about maybe 6 months into being a full-time creator, where I talk about the biggest changes that I've noticed both financially and just to my mental health and process and all the other things from going from a part-time to a full-time creator. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video coming out later. And if this video was helpful or insightful to you, please feel free to toss the video a cheeky like because it does really help the video get to more people that may be interested in a little bit of financial transparency of a content creator. If you have any questions or concerns or things that you're wondering about, feel free to hop in the comments down below because I'd be more than happy to answer you there. And with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye everyone!